The Auspicious Bride. The emperor was gravely ill, drifting in and out of consciousness. In a desperate bid to turn his fortunes, my father decided to send one of his daughters into the palace as an auspicious bride to ward off the lingering death. Upon hearing the news, my eldest sister scaled the wall to elope with a scholar. The same night, my second sister took a horse and fled the city. My father found me sitting in the dirt, happily playing with mud. He leaned down, a beaming smile on his face. "Destiny has finally smiled upon my precious little girl," he cooed. "My lord, are you truly sending the third miss into the palace?" The servants whispered, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Indeed," my father replied, sharpening his blade with a cheerful nod. "She will become a consort and secure the Shen family's favor." I had just been scolded and was hiding under a table, but I poked my head out and nodded firmly. "That's right! Better me than a total collapse of the clan." Hearing this, the servants scattered in a panic, shouting that the old marquis had finally lost his mind. And perhaps he had. While everyone else was distancing themselves from the dying emperor, my father was so eager to show his loyalty that he rushed to send his daughter into the palace for a Shanghai marriage. Even so, by any logic, the choice should never have fallen on a fool like me. My father, the Marquis of Zhongyang, was a legendary warrior with 3 daughters and 1 son. My eldest sister, Shen Yan, was a jade-like beauty of peerless intellect, the dream of every noble lord. My second sister, Shen Yue, was a spirited warrior who could outride and outfight most men. My elder brother, Shen Yunzhou, was a dashing, elegant youth who haunted the dreams of many high-born ladies. And then there was me. I climbed trees, vaulted walls, caught cicadas, started brawls, and had a vocabulary that would make a sailor blush. The more my siblings were praised, the more I was scolded. But when the imperial decree arrived, the perfect sisters vanished. My father, frantic as an ant on a hot griddle, briefly considered dressing my brother up as a girl to send him instead. Ultimately, he regained his senses and turned his gaze toward the only useless one left, me. "Your paternal aunt is in the palace," my father told me, pulling me into a tearful embrace before I left. "If you feel wronged, go to her. Be polite. No fighting. No cursing." I patted his shoulder, trying to stay brave. "Old man, just take care of yourself. Once I become the favored consort, I'll make sure you're well fed." My father's mouth hung open. He hesitated for a long time before finally squeezing out a single command. "Just get out of here!" And so I climbed into the palanquin and was carried through the palace gates. I was just settling in, imagining the grand dramas of the harem, when the solemn tolling of a bell echoed over the 10 jang high walls. The emperor had passed away. I was 7 years old, and I had warded off the emperor straight into his grave. I figured I could just turn around and go home, but the palace gates had already swung shut. Legions of soldiers were suddenly swarming the walls. A young eunuch ran toward me, shouting breathlessly, "Quickly! Or carry the third miss to the tiny palace." My father always said I was a sickly child who only survived because my aunt, now the Empress Dowager, brought me into the palace to care for me. But life in the tiny palace wasn't the sanctuary he described. The Empress Dowager knew I feared the dark, yet she locked me in pitch-black rooms. She knew I had a huge appetite, yet she fed me nothing but rock-hard, dried rations. When I tried to climb out a window, her maids beat my palms until I wailed. On my 3rd day, as I sat on the floor cursing the old witch, a soft voice spoke beside me. "It's dangerous outside. Mother is protecting us." It was Princess Wenzhao, the emperor's youngest sister and the Empress Dowager's darling. "Is protection supposed to feel like starving to death?" I snapped. She looked at me with eyes like a startled fawn. If not this, then what? I am locked here too, eating the same dried bread. 2 days later, the gates finally opened. Only then did I realize what Wen Zhao's protection meant. The palace was a graveyard. Blood stained the jade steps and ran like rivers through the courtyards. That was the first year of Jinghe. The late emperor had died and Prince Ning had rebelled. My father and brother had led the army to crush the revolt, protecting the 10-year-old crown prince, Wen Yi, as he ascended the throne. While the world celebrated the new era, I looked for my sisters. People avoided my gaze, their eyes turning red. My eldest sister hadn't eloped. She had disguised herself to escort the crown prince through enemy lines. She was killed by a hail of arrows. My second sister hadn't fled for freedom. She had taken the commander's tally to summon the reinforcements that saved the capital. She died of her wounds shortly after. For 5 years, the history books and the Empress Dowager honored them in secret, but the public only remembered them as the shameful daughters who ran away. To the world, they were failures. To the throne, they were the foundation. As the years passed, the trio of the palace formed: myself, Princess Wen Zhao, and Jiang Fu, the haughty daughter of the chancellor. We grew up under the shadow of those walls, dreaming of the world beyond. In the 8th year of Jinghe, my brother Shen Yunzhou was summoned to the palace to teach us martial arts. At 14, we were no longer children. Jiang Fu, who once hated me, now spent her days sketching my brother. Wen Zhao, usually so quiet, began to linger whenever he was near. But peace is a fragile thing. When the market of Jingbei rebelled, the now 18-year-old Wen Yi proved he was no puppet. He used the very spear techniques my brother taught him to behead the traitor himself. The political tides shifted. To secure the loyalty of the army, Wen Yi was forced to marry me. I became his empress, not out of love, but out of duty. On our wedding night, the young emperor sat alone with an old scent pouch, while I sat in the silent Kuning palace, the idiot girl who had finally become the mother of the nation. We tried to find happiness for Wen Zhao, who loved my brother. Wen Yi even promised to break tradition and allow the marriage once the war with Northern Huang was settled. He gave us each a small clay doll as a promise of the peace to come. But in the 7th month of that year, the peace turned out to be a trap. Northern Huang used a fake treaty to lure my brother into an ambush. The healing story we had built for ourselves began to crumble under the weight of a new war, leaving us to wonder if any of us would ever truly escape the square of sky above the palace walls. My elder brother Shen Yunzhou personally slew the second prince of Northern Huang. He then led his troops in a desperate charge to break the siege, only to be cornered at Mount Shang alongside our father. At that same moment, taking advantage of our kingdom's lack of preparation, the enemy mobilized a force 10 times our size, capturing Ham Duong Pass, Duquan, and Bangkok Pass in rapid succession. When the news reached the capital, the Northwest Army was suffering casualties multiple times higher than the enemy's, barely holding the line outside Mount Shang. Beyond those mountains lay the vast plains of the Great Chu. There was nowhere left to retreat. In a single night, the fate of the dynasty hung in the balance. Even Chancellor Jiang, a man who had served 2 emperors, was shaken. Jiang Fu entered the palace twice to scout for information, desperate to know what the emperor planned to do. In the midst of this crisis, many court officials proposed a peace marriage. They argued that if a century-long war could be ended by a single princess, any price was worth paying. Princess Wen Zhao was the only royal daughter of marriageable age. In the imperial court, Chancellor Jiang was livid, berating the officials for their cowardice. He argued that a bloodbath, deciding the nation's survival, could be delayed, but never avoided. Eventually, war would break out again, and what would become of the princess, sold to a foreign land, then? But the tide of the court was hard to turn. Desperate to help, I stole a bowl of ginseng soup intended for the Empress Dowager and brought it to the imperial study, trying to play the part of a gentle, supportive empress. Wen Yi was buried in scrolls, his face etched with exhaustion. "Rest easy," he said, not even looking up. "Protecting the nation is a man's burden. I will never let Wen Zhao be sent away for peace." He returned to his work immediately, leaving me standing there in a daze. I knew the pressure he was under. I wanted to be selfish for Wen Zhao's sake, but I didn't realize that the person who would eventually push her out the door was Wen Zhao herself. The news of the peace marriage spread like wildfire. Wen Yi was so enraged he trashed his study. No one expected that the quiet, obedient girl who had once blocked a general at the palace gates would now block the path of the entire court. She stood before the officials, demanding that Wen Yi sign the decree. She chose to trade her life for the soldiers at Mount Shang and for my brother. The Empress Dowager once said that in the Shen family, the men guard the borders and the women guard the state. I thought that was only our burden. I didn't know that for a princess, the duty was even harsher, to marry far away so the generals could hold the pass. On the day she left, Wen Zhao wore a bridal robe as red as a flame. Rishi held Jiang Fu's hand and mine, smiling softly. "Do you remember the night we released the lanterns on the Chong River?" Of course we remembered. That night, under a canopy of stars, 3 carefree girls had shared their wishes. The general's daughter wanted to guard the frontier. The statesman's daughter wanted to be empress. Only the little princess had remained silent. "That night," Wen Zhao whispered, "my wish was that you two could do whatever you wanted. The things you couldn't do, I would do for you." "Wanzi, you've been trapped in this palace for years, unhappy. You hate that our sisters died. You hate your aunt for locking you away. You hate the officials for being cowards. But we were born for this. No one in this world lives without grievances. We hide our pain and accept our chains so that the kingdom is protected, and so that the children of future generals and princesses can stay together. We don't live for ourselves. We live for the generations to come. If our misfortune means they don't have to repeat our fate, then it is worth it." In the 15th year of Jinghe, I fulfilled my duty as empress and gave birth to the crown prince, Yongji. Wen Yi was a good emperor, and since Wen Zhao's departure, he tried to be a good husband. He would draw my eyebrows, make me longevity noodles, and personally polish my phoenix hairpins. He was trying to love me. We were no longer young. We had responsibilities to carry, for Wen Zhao's sake. My father did not live to see the end. He had spent his life at war. When he finally held his grandson, he smiled and closed his eyes. His final words to my brother were a command: "Reclaim the lost lands. Bring the princess home." In the same year, the king of northern Huang died. Fearing the growing strength of the Great Chu, the new king ordered that the princess be returned after 5 years of marriage to seal a new era of peace. The kingdom rejoiced. The court prepared to rebuild the Shen estate and sew a new wedding dress for the princess. They wanted a grand wedding for the general and the princess, who had lost 5 years. Only Chancellor Jiang remained grim, refusing to celebrate while our ancestral lands were still occupied by enemy palaces built on the bones of our people. But Wen Zhao never made it home. She died on the border, assassinated on her way back to her homeland. The maid who had served her for 5 years killed her and then committed suicide. The only evidence was a blood-stained dagger from northern Huang. The fury of the Great Chu was absolute. Our soldiers, led by my brother, tore through northern Huang like a physical manifestation of grief. The war that had lasted 357 years finally ended. The lands were reclaimed. The oath we made as children was fulfilled, but the girl with the eyes like a fawn was gone forever. The Empress Dowager passed away shortly after. She had spent 25 years guarding the deep palace, sacrificing everything for the dynasty. On her deathbed, she looked at the old scent pouch on Wen Yi's belt and smiled weakly. Jiang Fu is a good girl. Bring her into the palace. Jiang Fu had loved Wen Yi since she was 13. The ugly, misshapen scent pouch he carried was her first attempt at embroidery. Their love was real, but it was a tragedy of timing. "Mother is never coming home," Wen Yi whispered, Yi kneeling in the snow, his heart breaking. The death of Wen Zhao had created a void between him and Jiang Fu that could never be filled. He couldn't move past the tragedy, and he couldn't stop hating the fact that the dagger used to kill Wen Zhao had come from the chancellor's estate. In the 19th year of his reign, Wen Yi began a purge of the great families. Chancellor Jiang, the pillar of the state, was arrested. The charge was failing to restrain his subordinates, but the truth was darker. Wen Yi believed the chancellor had orchestrated Wen Zhao's death to trigger the final war and unify the land. "What did Wen Zhao ever do wrong?" Wen Yi cried in the darkness of the hall. "My sister. She was innocent." The chancellor had completed his mission for the late emperor, but he had paid for it with Wen Zhao's blood. He committed suicide in his cell, leaving behind a single word written in blood: atonement. I rushed to the prison with a pardon, but I was too late. The chancellor was dead, and with him, the old world. Jiang Fu, broken by the death of her father and the coldness of the man she loved, followed him into the grave. She left a final note: "If you see the Jade Emperor, tell him I never want to return to this mortal realm again." By the 29th year of Jinkei, Wen Yi was dying. He was not even 40, but he had burned himself out like a candle to leave a clean, peaceful world for our son. "Wanzi, don't be angry," he whispered, clutching my hand. "I'm just so tired. I want to rest." He had reclaimed the land and cleared the court. His only regret was that he hadn't held on to the light of spring when it first bloomed, and he was buried with the old tattered scent pouch. My son, Yongji, became a wise emperor. When it came time for him to choose an empress, I told him to choose the girl he loved. He married Jiang Min, the chancellor's granddaughter. She was spirited and clumsy, often tripping on her robes, but she was happy. The tragedy of our generation finally ended with them. In my final years, I found a hidden letter in Wen Zhao's old quarters. It revealed the truth. The chancellor hadn't murdered her. Wen Zhao had chosen to die. She knew that only her death would give the emperor the reason he needed to finally destroy northern Huang and end the cycle of war. She had tied her life to the nation. I am old now. I sit in the sun, watching the square of sky above the palace. I don't like the flowers or the walls, but they pass the time. In my dreams, I am back in that spring years ago. Wen Yi is young and handsome, practicing his spear. My brother is watching him with a proud nod. Wen Zhao is stepping on their shadows, laughing, and Jiang Fu is sitting by the window, sketching the scene with a bright red robe and a smile. "Shen Wanzi!" Jiang Fu calls out, throwing down her brush and running toward me. "We've been waiting for you for so long." The spring is clear, The plum blossoms are falling, and we are all together again, just as we were, young, foolish, and full of hope. End.